You can't expect to lead some massive rally, just like flip a switch and embrace that overnight. It's going to take some time, and you got to start small, and maybe it starts with 3 or 5 workers.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
So, Adam, before the show, I told you that we got a voicemail, and it seemed really, just right up your alley to respond to. So let's play this voicemail and get your reaction.
Okay, sure.
Hey, what's going on, Valley Labor Report? I'm a big fan of the show. I've been listening for the entirety of my organizing career. After organizing a few shops, I got a job with a big local union here in the Midwest. And I'm wondering if y'all have any tips or tricks for breaking the labor management model. I find that, I'm kind of stuck in between my members and, my union, I guess, and I'm not sure how to break out and how to actually make change around here instead of just scheduling another meeting with, a boss who's not going to do anything. So just looking for advice on how to kind of, represent my members better. Thanks.
So, yeah, Adam, like I said, I thought that sounded pretty familiar to pretty similar to your own experience. So I'm interested in your thoughts.
Yeah, a few things that come to mind. I mean, for those who aren't familiar, I worked for the Alabama Education Association for over 5 years. I got my start as a high school history teacher, got very activated as an educator, got very involved both inside and outside of the association, and ultimately took a field staff position in summer 2015 to represent the Huntsville City Schools employees who belong to AEA. And so, like I said, I did that for over 5 years. And I came from, rank and file perspective, from a militant perspective, and from an organizing, wanting to embrace organizing. I didn't have a ton of experience as an organizer, but I knew that organizing was going to be important to make gains for educators, because I looked around and I was wondering, who's going to fight for us? Who's going to do something? Who's going to say something? Because this isn't acceptable. What we're experiencing as teachers, as librarians, counselors, custodians, cafeteria workers, none of us were getting a fair shake, and it was important that somebody do something about it. And, I felt like embracing organizing, and as well as even some of the social movement unionism that our brother from Southern Workers Assembly just talked about, I thought that was important. The first thing I would say, though, is, he already identified that he's sort of caught in the middle. And that's true, because you're a staffer, right? And I would argue that the best place for change comes from the rank and file themselves. And as a staffer, you can do what you can to support that kind of rank and file momentum. You can also continually be caught in the middle between the institution, the union as an institution, and its management and bureaucracy on the one hand, and then, the membership on the other. Or in some cases, there's other dynamics as well, right? Because you have elected leaders of the membership, which aren't always necessarily reflective of the rank and file, however you want to interpret that. And so, yeah, you can be caught in a bind there, and it's very easy to outkick your coverage on one end or the other in terms of you get too far out ahead of the members, or you can get too far out ahead of the institution and your supervisors. It's a very difficult dynamic to be in if you are a staffer for a labor organization and you do have this passion for militancy and for organizing and for worker power, but you are in that staff role. And it's even more difficult if the people in the institution above you, whether that's the elected leadership and or the staff management, the executive directors and the like, if they don't share that same vision, you are going to be caught in a bind. And, a veteran organizer once told me at one of my earliest trainings that the most common way that work ends is in burnout or sellout.
Mm.
And I didn't want to be either one of those. I burned out. I didn't sell out. Believe it or not many people even tried to buy me out. I don't know what that means. Maybe they knew it wouldn't work. I'm gonna take that as the right answer. But so yeah, I think it's a difficult dynamic to be in. But here's what I really want to emphasize, which is build relationships. Build relationships with the members, with the coworkers that you have that you can trust, because presumably you have a staff union as well. If not, maybe that's something you need to be working on. But build relationships and really lean on that, and start small. If you're trying to introduce organizing into a local that really hasn't done anything, you can't expect to lead some massive rally, just like flip a switch and embrace that overnight. It's going to take some time, and you got to start small. And, maybe it starts with 3 or 5 workers getting together for a brainstorming session. Maybe it starts with, of course, in my context in the school system, right, it was just like, if I could get somebody to come to this school board meeting with me, at least somebody, right, that's a win. And then if next time they can bring somebody else, then there's another win. So yeah, you just start small. I think as you listen to the members and get to know the members, you will get a better sense of the issues that are widely felt and deeply felt. And those are the issues you want to work on, issues that unify folks, that bring the members together, issues that you can have wins that can build on wins, where you can introduce some organizing into your campaign and into your work, and build confidence among the members that they can do it, right? Because sometimes it's just a not knowing. No one's ever asked them to wear a red shirt on Friday in solidarity, right? It's not that they're opposed. It's not that they don't know how to do it. Maybe no one's literally ever asked them to do that. Maybe no one's ever had a conversation with them about, why would that be a good thing to do? Why would we all wear red shirts on Friday? Well, what kind of message does that send? And what are we trying to track from that, right? Who shows up and wears the red and who doesn't? Where are we strong? What departments all showed up in red and which departments didn't show up? All those kinds of things. So those are just some things that come to my mind. I hesitate because I think at the end of the day, a lot of really bright, passionate, talented people want to change this labor movement and make it better. And a lot of us end up in staff positions because of that, or in spite of that. And that's not always the best position to make that transformation. I think we need good people in those staff roles, absolutely. But it can never be led by staff. And, that was certainly an experience that I had in Huntsville, is that, I felt like that was an area where I could have done a lot better. And anytime you can have opportunities to build power from the bottom up, take advantage of it, however small it may be. So those are just some thoughts. Jacob, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that all sounds good, and I think in particular, trying to, and some of it is, you mentioned, or you've talked to me before about trying to, empower members and delegating some tasks to them that they can do, and one added benefit of that is it takes work off of your plate, but it actually does. It does help them kind of build the muscles to exercise power themselves, and to feel like they have a stake in the union. And so, I think that that's always good. I guess one question that I would have would be, to obviously the change has to come from the members, because if you, like you said, if you outkick your skis as a staffer, and the members don't support you, and in your case, even when the members support you, the management of the union is just going to kick you out. They're going to fire you because they don't like the direction that you're trying to take the union. So it has to come from the members. And so how do you make, what would be some of your thoughts about how to make the membership see that there's only so much that you can do as staff, and that it really has to be them leading the charge?
Hey, 5 seconds. Just wanted to say that this is only possible because of our donors. If you want to see more of this, then consider donating yourself at tvlr.fm/donate.
Well, I think you have to be honest. Maybe carefully honest, but honest. I think you have to keep it real with members about that, because sometimes there is an impression of like, oh, well, you are the union, right? Like, you're the staffer, like
Right.
You're the union guy. You're supposed to fix this, or you're supposed to take care of that.
Right.
And people pay dues, and they expect a certain amount of services, and we have to factor all that in. But yeah, I think you have to be realistic with folks about it, and I think you have to, again, that's where the relationships come in handy, because the more you have authentic relationships with folks, the more you can have that conversation in a real way. And, I think you just continually have to bring it back to the members and put it back on them of like, well, what are y'all going to do about it? Right? Yes, something is bad in the workplace. Okay, now what are we going to do about it? Right? Not like, what are you, the union? Like, no, like, we are the union, right? So we're all in this together. So how are we all going to work together? What can we do about said problem, said issue? But yeah, it's tough. It's tricky. I certainly don't have any magic formula for it. I wish I did. I'd be a lot better off probably. But, all I can learn from is the experiences that I've had, and I've certainly done it well, and I've done it not so well. So I think local governance can be a dynamic to factor in, like, what do they want? So yeah, you are caught in the middle between the various institutions as well as the rank and file itself. But ultimately, if you stay true to your values, you can sleep at night.
Right. And that's really going to be kind of the big important thing.
That's what counts. That's what has always counted to me. And, maybe I went to sleep at night knowing I was broke, but I would rather do that than sell out the membership, than betray the membership, or to simply just take the route of expediency, just to make it easier on yourself and hurt the membership as a whole.
And, that kind of, this conversation is part of the broader conversation about, building up unions. And that's kind of been part of a theme of the second half of the show, with the Southern Workers Assembly, and then answering this question. And that goes, it ties into a question that we got some time ago that we've been sitting on and haven't had the chance to answer during a show. But, somebody asked about, basically from the other side, like, if I'm a member of a union, how do I go about trying to, build support among the other members for a more militant, democratic kind of union? And the question specifically was, talk about the nuances and difficulties of being a leftist, trying to organize within a union with members of all different backgrounds, and even, potentially some pseudo-fascists, how to build solidarity and class consciousness without using scary words. And that's definitely, without using scary words is a very important thing, I think, because when, people identify as a leftist or a socialist or whatever, those are definitely trigger words, and they make people feel weird in some places. But if you just talk about what you want to do, what is it that you what is the change that you want to enact on society in our workplace? And the change is, we want more power to be in the hands of the working class. And, that's really not that scary, but so just a little bit of a comment there, but how would you answer that kind of from the other side as a member? What would you think? What do you think would be some words of advice there?
Well, I do think it goes back to relationships and, building respect on the job. Obviously, doing activism and organizing stuff here in Alabama for the past decade or so. If you haven't figured it out, I'm a little bit to the left of most people in Alabama. But that hasn't stopped me from, having some success in coalition work and finding unlikely partners and working together with folks across different backgrounds and different perspectives uniting around common interest. I had some of my AEA members who were Republicans and who certainly knew that I disagreed with them on politics, but they were still excellent for me in terms of showing up as building reps, showing up at school board meetings when the call to action comes out, writing the legislator when I asked them to. And so I think it was because we were able to work together on shared interests. We all want to be treated with respect and dignity. We all want to be able to go home to our families safely at the end of the day, spend time with our families. We all want to be able to provide for our families and make enough to do that. We all want to retire with dignity and comfort after a life given to labor. Those are just some areas where we can find common ground, I think. Will it work with everybody? No, of course not. But yeah, I think it's all in your approach of like, are you approaching people as like fellow workers, as your brothers and sisters? Or are you like preaching at them like the unconverted, And I think sometimes people who are very politicized make that mistake. Whether it's, using like buzzwords or, triggering language, yes, which is something that happens, but also just the approach in general, I think, sometimes it can really turn people off. And I don't know, I've always had, I would say, a fair amount of success in being able to get along with folks and talk with folks and listen to folks, who don't necessarily share my politics. And I've had plenty of people who don't share my politics who still, maybe respect my advocacy or organizing because they see why I'm doing it. And that goes back to your point of like, what are you trying to do and like why? Well, it's because I think all of us work hard, right? All of us work hard. We all deserve better. We all deserve to be treated fairly at work. We all deserve to be able to enjoy vacation and sick leave and etc. And that's not to say that you can only stick to bread and butter issues that are like less controversial, because I do think there's absolutely a need for and a space for social movement unionism, because all of these issues are connected and we can't just operate in a silo into like what happens in the workplace. So you're going to have friction points. You're going to have instances where some people get turned off or where you have some conflict. But again, I think if you're focusing on trying to develop relationships with folks that are in good faith, that are honest, that you may not always agree, and that, hey, you may think I'm like some crazy commie, but guess what? I'm going to show up for you. I'm going to fight for you. And I hope you'll do the same for me. Yep. And, I think, you can have success. It just takes, it takes a lot of effort, and you have to try and you have to be persistent. And you can't just give up when it doesn't work out, because it's not going to work out all the time.
Right.
It may not even work out most of the time.
Right.
But when you have those wins, it's so remarkable and amazing. And when you can work together with someone who disagrees with you about other things, but can struggle together, that enhances the relationship and builds a whole new level of solidarity that sometimes can transcend those differences and sometimes can even begin to erase those differences and begin to bring those folks over closer to you as they see what you're about and they see the work that you're doing. So, those are just some of my thoughts.
Yeah, we went to a DSA meeting the other day, and the Southern Region staff organizer for the DSA, so the person that has the Southern Region, he came down, and he was at the meeting, and we were talking after the meeting, and he said that he was previously an organizer with the UAW, and he wasn't, shy about, or he wasn't closeted anyway about being a socialist, and he told us about how there's this, one of his the best members in terms of being in favor of the union and being active and activating others for the union was a very conservative, Republican, diehard, conservative, in his opinions. But after, working with him on a strike and showing him how much that he cared about, the union and him, the union generally and him specifically, they came to be, closer and friendlier, and he was and this Republican guy was introducing the socialist union staffer to a friend and said something like, yeah, this is so and so, he's a socialist but he's a good guy. So
right. And that, hey, I mean, there are people in my life who have said something very similar about me.
Yep.
And you know what, we can still have good conversations about different issues, and not all issues
right.
by any means, but you can do it. So I would just encourage people, stay true to your values, but meet people where they are.
You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.